What happens when you rip dragon mounts from the hit 1989 video game Golden Axe and get space elf wizards to ride them around on the battlefields of the 41st millennium? What I'm trying to say is, welcome to the Exodite kill team. This is a venerable yet unrealized corner of the 41st millennium, and it's one of those pieces of lore and pieces of art actually that goes way back to sort of the rogue trader roots of Warhammer's sort of genesis. And importantly for Kill Team, I think that this might herald the return of one of the most divisive sort of expansions, I suppose, to the original 2018 game, and that was Kill Team Commanders. In this expansion, we got the most elite versions of our kill teams, and I definitely feel like that design space is going to be explored a little bit more with the release of this team. This team obviously does a little bit of a paradigm shift, I suppose, in regards to what the smaller, most elite teams look like. Definitely worth a discussion, so let's get into it. First of all, it's the second release in a row, the first being the Terror on Devlan, that is moving away from the dual team PvP focused box format and is shifting focus a little bit towards narrative play, basically giving you a sort of a cooperative and solo play experience, as opposed to two teams for you and your buddy to beat each other up with. And I've seen a lot of opinions thrown around online, negative and positive, about the box format itself. Some people really like the shift away from a purely PvP focus, and some people think that it is a bit of a detriment to the value of the boxes, not just having a second PvP team in there for you to play. If you would like to share your own opinions, obviously you can drop them in the comments below. I will do my best to respond. Cat break. So if I actually lock him out of my office now, he just flips and starts destroying things in the hallway. So I've got to stop recording the video and let him in. This box brings us far more change than just a shift in a release format. I would argue that it actually gives us quite a big paradigm shift in the game. This is because we're having the floor lowered in regards to the amount of minis that constitute a kill team. We've now got a kill team with 3 operatives supported by 2 hound bodies. Now, I could make videos for days on what this new ultra elite kill team roster format might give us. Just think about how this might apply to Custodes, Grey Knights, stuff like that. I've been calling it the Blade Guard format because there's 3 of them. I'm pretty excited about how this Blade Guard format might apply to other factions and other kill teams in Warhammer. So if you like the sound of that, it might be worth subscribing to the channel. Although there are only 3 mainline bodies for the Exodite kill team, they did state on the stream that they are going to be 4 APL each. Now, this is a rare stat in the game of Kill Team, only really present for any length of time with the Brew Brothers Gene Stealer Patriarch mini, which is kind of like the most elite model in the game at the moment. If we assume, though, that they operate under the same mechanics as the Gene Stealer Patriarch, it actually works out quite well in terms of activation limits with the wider game. 2 hounds having their separate activations, and then the 2, 4, 6 separate activations for the Exodites themselves. So the stream and the article discusses a few things, such as the sniper, mage, and warrior archetypes being present in the different operatives. It also touches on the hound's ability to what it describes as distract the enemy, as well as reveal them as targets. So the first operative that I'm going to talk about is called the Exodite Clan Blade. He is the warrior of the 3 archetypes that we've discussed, and seems to be equipped with a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual disc, which is something I just found out the name of doing my research then, because I knew he had a Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing, but not a dual disc. But anyway, the dual disc is probably some kind of power buckler or power shield. So going off some previous precedents that have been set throughout the game, this might translate as a 2-up save. It might translate into 4 dice in your defense from shooting. It might even just be the ability to double parry in melee or even strike first, something along those lines. It's also stated that he has access to both a power sword and a power axe. This may give him a bit of, what's the word, keyword flexibility, shall we say, a way for him to build into enemy teams. I imagine one might be lethal 5-up and the other might be brutal, something like that. I don't know. His unit description on the article describes him as being able to understand the enemy as well as inspire his allies around him. This could mean a few different things. Usually we get something like a command point generator. We might get maybe 3 ploys, or it might just even be a APL manipulation, something along those lines. With that said, I doubt that a 4 APL team is going to get the ability to buff itself up to 5 APL. That would be pretty wild. And again, obviously, it also states that he is able to understand the enemy. That could translate in a few different ways as well. Possibly some kind of Vox screen mechanic, maybe a seek light ability, something like that. And finally, something that's running concurrently throughout all of these different Exodite operatives is the name of their steed. The name of the mount for the clan blade is called a Red Moor. This probably means that he is like the most front-loaded melee mount, if you know what I mean. He might have something like shock and brutal, or he might just have a higher damage profile flat on his melee weapons. The second operative that I'm going to talk about is the sniper archetype, and now this guy is called the Ley Stalker. He's described as having reflexive accuracy in the unit description on the preview, which could be a guard or guard adjacent ability. Definitely powerful if it can be performed like the Wolf Scouts on open maps. And I do think the height of the mounts would really come into their own for for the ruined walls and things like that. There'd be no hiding from this guy. Equally, it could be like a 360 no scope proximity shot, like you sometimes get with the Pistolier operatives in other teams. And also on top of this, I imagine that he will either be able to shoot twice innately, as he is essentially kind of the front-loaded range threat of this team, or alternatively, obviously, he would be able to shoot twice if his activations are split, just like the Gene Stealer Brood Lord's activations are for the Brood Brothers. And this guy's mount is called a Dark Scale Drake Steed. Again, this could translate in a few different ways, and we could assume that this is going to give him something like double cover saves or obscurement manipulation, possibly. Even maybe would go so far as to say he could turn on super conceal. Now, if he could do that, that would be crazy, because you'd have this giant dragon in the middle of the board that you just can't shoot. But yeah, very interesting to think about. And finally, the last sort of big major operative for the team is the Stone Singer. And this looks like the team's primary support piece. It looks like they're going to combine the strengths of a medic with the strengths of a Psyker Mini. A little bit like maybe the wizard for the Death Guard. Another thing that this guy might have access to, I imagine, would be a blast profile, because double kill potential needs to exist in a team with such a small model count. If you're just trading 1-for-1 the whole time, I don't think it's going to end very well rules-wise, if you think about it. Another interesting tidbit from the reveals article is the ability for the wizard to contact the souls of the dead in the world spirit. Now, this could just be a little bit of fluff in regards to the Exodites' sort of heritage as a faction, where they are disconnected from the Eldor Infinity Circuit, which is the craft world equivalent, and they channel their souls into the sort of core of a world. But if it translates rules-wise, it could also be very interesting. So if it isn't just fluff and it's got to translate rules-wise, I can see the Stone Singer being able to use the support abilities of his dead teammates. Again, this is kind of a coping mechanism for a team with so much undiluted power in so few models. So when they lose the leader, for example, they lose their command point generator and all the other abilities that leader has. So not only might this be a new mechanic for Kill Team, I can't think of another model in the game that does it, but also it would be an interesting way for the team to get around so much undiluted power being concentrated in so few minis. And finally, we come to the Dracoliths, which are the disruption element of the team. If these were Wreckers, these would be the Squigs. If these were Brew Brothers, these would be the Familiars. You know the drill, that kind of thing. I talked about it a little bit earlier in the video, but they are described as being able to intercept enemies. This could be literally like the Battle Mutt has a proximity-based runaway ability, doesn't it, with the Rattlings? So we could get something like that, possibly being able to run into, a melter gun that's trying to flank one of your minis and stop them from, blowing up one of your 3 power pieces. Another thing it might have is, just a straight up get down, Mr. President, within 3 inches of a big guy. Finally, they're also described as being able to detect prey. And I think that this might translate as a line of sight breaking mechanic, somewhat like Broodmind telepathy or some of the Necron jank that you can do with Hyrotech and stuff like that. So one really interesting thing about this team is the mounted cavalry mechanics themselves that might come along the way. And I think we might be able to glean a little bit of detail about how that might work by looking at the tokens that we can see here. These tokens seem to illustrate like an arced attack. Obviously, we've got a sight line there right through the middle of the arc, which we might have to mark on the base, or might be drawn from the head of the Dracolith or something like that. But either way, we've definitely got a point of origin for this 45-degree arc to come off, which is new. That's not something we've had before in the game of Kill Team. Definitely very Necromunda-esque. And it would be a very interesting way for them to illustrate the mounted cavalry element of the team. Instead of having just another melee profile, which would obviously eat into the wounds of the operatives when they engage in melee combat, we may be getting something like this, a tail attack or slashing claw attack that could possibly be raked across multiple enemy operatives. It's just a new and interesting way of producing rules for the game, and I think highlights one of the great strengths of Kill Team, which is the open-ended way in which these teams are made rules-wise. I know that it often leads to imbalance, and I know that it often leads to complications within the rules and arguments and the necessary sort of FAQs and erratas that come along with that. But if you can suck it up and you can get over that, it's an incredibly sort of open-ended way to approach team creation, I guess, from the the rules side of the game. Very interesting. And I do think that if this is the way that the Dracoliths are going to attack enemy operatives as opposed to engaging with them in the traditional sense, it would just be an excellent way to differentiate between the mounted cav attacks and the traditional attacks of the operative riding the mount. So my closing thoughts on the Exodite preview. I do think we are seeing the game head in a particular direction, and that is smaller teams and hopefully shorter games. This could evolve further, obviously, into the genesis of the next edition of the game, but certainly the next season is going to start moving that sort of paradigm in a particular direction. We've seen Spectre Squad drop the Horde niche down from a 14 body team to an 11 body team, with one of them being like a radar dish or whatever. And now we've seen the Exodite kill team lower the floor on the amount of big guys running around on the board within a team as well. So I think one of the big takeaways from this release and Terror on Devilland, I suppose, is that we are seeing the game become, hopefully, artificially shorter, and teams sort of kept to a new minimum. And I mean, never say never. We might get like a 14-man grot revolutionary team in the future, or a custodian team with like one custodian and 4 servo skulls or some shit. I'm looking forward to seeing the Blade Guard roster type realized across other factions, Tyranid Warriors, Grey Knights, Custodians, and so on. The next takeaway is Season 3 isn't really here yet, is it? I think that when it gets here, we will probably get a re-release of Octarius. However, with all the stuff floating around with pre-painted terrain and terrain layouts for big 40k, it's also possible that we could share a terrain release with big 40k, something like that. And finally, because no precedent has been set for these kind of Blade Guard style teams yet, and this is basically the testing bed, the big experiment for teams that are really this hyper elite, I feel like the Exodite kill team is either going to be overpowered or just not have enough board presence to do what it needs to do and win games. We will see. If you got any value out of this video and you're still watching, thank you for watching till the end. Please like and subscribe. Take care.